August 13th, 1985, in Derry, Maine. Arrived the only way this cursed town knows how before a great purging, sticky, heavy, and reeking of stagnant water. Bill Denborough felt it in his skin. He felt it in the way his once confident fingers white-knuckled the flashlight, and in the way his stutter, that old ghost of his childhood, coiled around his throat like an invisible noose. The stutter was not just a speech impediment. It was the barometer of his terror. And right now, it was as deep as the sewers themselves. They stood at the mouth of the barrens, the ones who survived, the ones who returned.
6 adults who looked successful on the outside, but were as hollow as rusted tin cans on the inside. Bill, Richie, Eddie, Beverly, Ben, and Mike. Stan was already gone. He had chosen a razor blade and a bathtub over facing the deadlights again. Looking into the dark maw of the collector pipe, Bill began to realize that Stan might have been the wisest of them all.
We have to, Bill managed. Every word was a stone he had to haul uphill. Richie Tozier tried to crack a joke. That was his job, his shield, his way of not shattering. He summoned his best voice, the Irish cop or the old lady, but only a pathetic, dry rasp escaped his throat. His glasses fogged from the humidity, and for a heartbeat, he looked to Bill like a little boy lost in the oversized clothes of a dead man. Let's go, Bill said, and they moved into the dark. Derry's sewers did not just smell of waste. They smelled of old sins, forgotten promises, and that particular scent of wet wool and cotton candy that belonged to him. Bill led the way, and with every step, he felt the magic that once made them the Losers Club evaporating. At 12, they were kings of this subterranean realm because they believed a silver slug could kill a werewolf. Now they were adults.
They knew about taxes, divorces, and the fact that silver was just element 47 on the periodic table. This knowledge was their most terrible enemy. They walked for an eternity. Time underground flowed differently, turning into a thick, black tar. The tunnel walls seemed alive, vibrating with a distant, visceral hum. Bill remembered the turtle, Maturin, the ancient being that had once given them strength. He tried to reach out with his mind, to send a flare for help, but he struck a wall of icy void. There was no support, no wisdom, only a great, indifferent silence. The turtle was either dead or had simply turned away, deciding that this cycle would end differently.
"Bill," Beverly whispered. Her voice was brittle. I'm forgetting." "What?" "I'm forgetting his face, my husband's, even my father's. Everything is turning gray." It had begun. It was erasing their identities before they even reached the lair. It knew their strength lay in their bond, in their shared memory. If the threads were severed, they would become mere fodder. Ben Hanscom clutched his head. The hands he used to build great skyscrapers now felt like alien, clumsy lumps of flesh. They reached the place where the tunnels converged into a singular, gargantuan hall. The dark stomach of Derry. There was no water here, only mountains of trash and child things accumulated over centuries. And in the center of the chaos, it waited. It did not take the shape of a clown. It did not become a spider. It was everything and nothing, a pulsing mass of orange light shrouded in shadows that bent at impossible angles. "Now!" Bill cried. "The ritual!" Bill and Richie stepped forward, bracing for the mental battle of wills. They were to bite the tongue of it, to bridge their minds with the infinite and defeat him through the power of imagination. Bill closed his eyes and tried to project himself out of his body. He waited for his consciousness to soar toward the stars, to the place where he had once met the turtle. But he went nowhere. His mind remained locked within his skull, weighted down by 38 years of life experience. He tried to summon the image of Georgie to give him wings, but instead, he saw only unpaid bills, the drafts of his unfinished novels, and the face of his wife, Audra, in whom he now saw not love, but habit. Beside him, Richie was wheezing, his face twisted in a mask of pain. It spoke. The voice did not ring in their ears. It rang in their very DNA. "You have returned, little losers."
But you are no longer little. You are heavy. You are bitter. You smell of decay. Bill felt the consciousness of it bear down on him. It was like trying to hold back the ocean with a paper umbrella. Childhood magic worked because children know no boundaries between the possible and the impossible. Adult Bill knew all too well. One man cannot fight a cosmic evil. And that exact knowledge became his death warrant. His mind began to buckle. He saw the deadlights not as something distant, but as the finish line of his path. Eddie Kasprak saw that Bill and Richie were losing. He saw their faces turn pale, their eyes rolling back. He had to do something. Eddie reached for his inhaler. His hand shook, but a single thought pounded in his head. It worked before. My faith is my weapon. He rushed toward the pulsating mass of light. "It's acid!" he screamed, his voice breaking. "It's the strongest acid in the world! You'll burn it!" He pressed the valve. A fine mist sprayed out, enveloping a tentacle of shadow. Eddie waited for the hiss, the smoke, the cry of agony. But the silence remained unbroken. The mist settled on the shadow like harmless dew. Eddie froze. He looked at the white plastic in his hand. And in that moment, the worst moment in history, his adult mind betrayed him. He remembered the words of his doctor. He remembered it was just a placebo, a bronchodilator made of water and chemicals. He realized it was not acid. As soon as he realized it, the power vanished. It leaned lazily toward him. Eddie did not scream when the shadow passed through him. He simply felt all the warmth, all the memories of being a hero, drained out of him. He fell to his knees, staring into the void. He was no longer a loser. He was just a sick man who had lost his medicine. Beverly Marsh raised her slingshot. She pulled the band taut, the silver slug cold against her fingers. She had to hit. She always hit. "Please," she whispered, "let it be true." But the silver no longer shone. It looked dull, like old coins in a beggar's pocket. Beverly fired, but the slug that used to fly with the speed of a bullet now traveled only a few feet and clinked pathetically against a stone. She realized her faith in the club was shattered. She looked at Ben, but she did not see the tender boy who wrote her poems. She saw only a successful architect who had never truly found a home. Orange light from the deadlights flared brighter. It filled the cavern, erasing the outlines of bodies, the sound of breathing, the very sense of reality. The losers were no longer a club. They were 6 scattered dots in the darkness, each drowning in their own personal hell. Bill Denborough felt his consciousness finally detach from his body. He saw himself from the outside, a graying man lying on a pile of trash. He saw his friends. They looked like ghosts. In the final second before the deadlights consumed him utterly, Bill saw Georgie. But it was not the Georgie in the yellow slicker calling him to play. It was the real Georgie, the man he would have become 27 years later, if not for that rainy day. Georgie was old, his face distorted in a grimace of indifference. "You did not save me," stuttering Bill, the image whispered.
You just forgot me.
And now, it will forget you. Bill tried to scream, but instead of a cry, the silvery laughter of Pennywise escaped his mouth. He understood. Its victory did not lie in eating their bodies. The victory lay in making them part of itself, so that their failures and their adult bitterness would become the new fuel for the next cycle. The orange glow closed over them. On August 14th, 1985, there was no flood in Derry. The city center did not sink. The old standpipe remained standing, looking with its empty gaze at the barrens. In the morning, the residents of Derry woke up and went to work. Mike Hanlon did not show up at the library, but no one noticed his absence. The hotels had the luggage of 6 people, but the maids simply threw them in the trash, never asking where the guests had gone. Memory of the losers vanished faster than ripples on water. The city lived on, pulsing and growing. Deep underground, in the silence, the orange lights burned steady and calm. It was fed. The cycle continued. And somewhere in a schoolyard, a little boy heard a soft, familiar voice from a sewer grate, promising that down here, they would all float. And this time, no one came to stop him.